A football Friday entering week number 18 around the National Football League. It is our regular season finale weekend in the NFL. So over these next 2.5 hours or so, you will get everything you need to know. All the information, all the potential scenarios, and the stakes for each and every individual matchup. All 16 games that we have starting tomorrow night with a couple of AFC North duels that will ultimately decide the division and playoff seeding in the AFC in all 14 games on Sunday, including the very final game of Sunday, the very final game of the regular season in the National Football League. It is game 272. It is as good as you could ever hope or dream for in a regular season finale because of what is on the line between the Lions and the Vikings in the Motor City on Sunday night. Joe, the winner of this game between Detroit and Minnesota will claim the NFC North divisional crown. The winner of this game between Detroit and Minnesota will be the number one seed in the NFC. It is the first time in more than 30 years that the final game of the NFL regular season will determine a one seed in a conference. You got to go all the way back to the 1993 NFL campaign to find a game with similar stakes. It is the first time in NFL history we will see two teams that each have 14 wins face off against one another in a regular season affair. Yes, it is a longer regular season now than ever in the history of the NFL, but still a historic matchup with so much at stake on Sunday night in Detroit. So now let's talk the actual game itself in the numbers. A 2.5-point spread in favor of the Lions at home, maybe the highest total we will see in the NFL in the last 4 or 5 seasons at 56.5. Joe, where do you begin your breakdown for Sunday night in the Motor City?
Well, it's interesting, Ben, when you look at this Detroit team, right? Or let's say Minnesota, who's won, 9 straight games. They've covered their last 4. They're 14-2 on the season, but they last lost to the Lions in week 7. And then they followed that up with a loss to the Rams a week later. So you can make the argument, Ben, that they lost the Lions game twice. But it's been all wins since then. And the Lions, ironically enough, the only 2 losses they have this year, Ben, came at home. And they, too, find themselves 14-2 on the season. They haven't lost since Buffalo came to town and beat them, 3 weeks ago here. But they have overcome the injuries. They love playing at home. Dan Campbell is going to roll the dice. And I think styles make fights here. This is a absurd total of 56.5. And it's finally started to come down, Ben, because it was up over 57 a couple of days ago. But finally, people are starting to realize how unbelievably ridiculous a number that is, even for these two teams here. This is going to be a playoff game. Make no mistake about it. Neither of these two teams want to be the 5 seed. Neither of these two teams like each other. There's revenge to factor in here. Ultimately, I think this is going to come down, well, crazy enough, right? With a 56.5 total, Ben. It's going to be about the defense here. I don't know that Brian Flores is best served blitzing the world at Jared Goff because of the weapons Jared Goff has access to. And quite honestly, his numbers against the blitz are actually over the top good. So I do think there are going to be some wrinkles thrown in this game. I don't think the offenses are just going to be scoring at will here. Even for a decimated Lions defense, they know they've got to come up with some stops, and they know this team better than anybody. To me, it's only under in this game, 56.5. I am not expecting a wild shootout. This is going to be a playoff game atmosphere, one in which I guess first one to 24 will win, Ben.
As we were waiting for Monday Night Football, after the Minnesota Vikings beat the Green Bay Packers to set up this monumental matchup in Game 272 in the Motor City last weekend in week number 17, the early projected line had Detroit as a 2.5-point favorite. At home, that's where it still stands in the over-under at 52.5. But then we all saw the Lions go to Santa Clara on Monday, come back to win 40-34, and the line opened up at 57.5. and a hook for this individual game entering Week 18. Joe, Detroit has allowed 31 points or greater in 3 of its last 4 games since those significant defensive injuries started to really pile up. That's an average of 32.5 points per game. That's not great, but the offense in the last 4 has scored at least 34 in all 4 of those games, averaging 37.5. The Lions can outscore anybody, and that even means if they allow 30-plus points. But that's not really how they want to win this football game. The Vikings, meanwhile, in where their season has been, Joe, they have been over in all 3 games against those NFC North teams with double-digit victories. Both times against the Packers, the opening game against Detroit in the Twin Cities back in Week 17. That was 31-21. All 3 of those games to the over for the Vikings against their NFC North foes that have been good this year featured at least 52 points. But this is slightly unfamiliar territory now for Minnesota, who has not been an underdog because they have been matching expectation since week number 4. Their 3 games this year as a dog, of course, weeks 2 through 4, they won outright. The Lions still 10-5 against the spread as the favorite side this season, 48-22 ATS under Dan Campbell, the best cover team in the National Football League. And it does need to be stressed, the winner is the 1 seed. The winner is the champion of the NFC North. The loser is the top wild card team in the 5 spot. What might that mean, Joe, for these teams' outlook entering the postseason as we look at their season numbers?
Yeah, well, it's a big difference, and it's kind of crazy that it's come down to this. The NFL lucky in many aspects that they have a game like this, but don't forget, Ben, both these teams, they're in the playoffs, guys. So they're not really going to lay it all out. There's not that much on the line here, Ben. You got to be in it to win it, and they're both in it.
And we'll discuss who that 4 seed could be around the NFC a little bit later on. More on the early line next. Live right here on the early line on Sports Grid. It is a Football Friday, entering week number 18 around the National Football League. So everything that is on the line and at stake for this final regular season weekend. That means clinching a playoff spot, winning a divisional crown, or just improving your seed line around your postseason picture. And Joe, we don't have to wait long for week 18 to get started. Tomorrow, a doubleheader in the NFL, but specifically the AFC North. First up, it is in Baltimore. The Ravens, a 19.5-point favorite against the Browns. We'll talk about that game in a moment, but it should be shared that if Baltimore wins that game outright, as they are expected to do, and then some, the Ravens clinch the AFC North. It is why the Flock is a minus 20,000 favorite to win the division at this moment, which leads us into the Saturday night nightcap to end out the doubleheader in the Steel City between Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. You will see the Bengals as a slight road favorite, where it stands right now, 1.5 in the spread, minus 130 on the money line. That total stands at 48.5. So here are the stakes. If the Ravens do beat the Browns, which is what we expect, again, a 19.5-point favorite now, Baltimore wins the AFC North. So what does Pittsburgh have to play for then? That would really favor Cincy. Not so fast. Pittsburgh needs to win the game outright to clinch the 5 seed in the AFC and understand it doesn't have to go to Baltimore right away to start off the postseason, but rather a Houston team as the 4 seed that has not had that great of a season, at least based on relative expectation, despite winning the AFC South for a second consecutive year. The Bengals must win tomorrow night to try to earn the 7 seed, that last and final spot in the AFC playoff picture. But since he needs some help, they would need both a Broncos loss to the Chiefs reserves on Sunday afternoon and the Dolphins to go down on the road against the New York Jets in MetLife. So, Joe, understanding the stakes, what do you like tomorrow night in the Steel City?
Well, it's fortunate that we get this game tomorrow night because, yes, in all likelihood, the Ravens beat the Browns. They lock up the division, but there is a lot on the line here and at stake for Pittsburgh, especially at home here, Ben. They've already lost 3 in a row. They lose this game, that's 4 in a row. Not to mention now you're on a 4-game losing streak. You have no confidence in anything you seem to be doing, offense or defensively, and then you got to go play the Ravens. This is not a great situation here. Pittsburgh needs a big effort here. So regardless of what happens in that first game, I expect a big effort, and I expect all hands to be on deck here for the Steelers. Having said that, it's not even Russell Wilson and the offense I'm worried about. The Pittsburgh defense has allowed 90 points in the last 3 games, Ben. They've only scored 40, but that's another issue to talk about. I mean, we're talking about a Pittsburgh team that's only 2-4 against the number in their last 6. But the thing that has stood out to me isn't Russell Wilson struggling without Pickens on the field. It's that this defense has allowed 90 points in the last 3 games. And what do you think Cincinnati is going to do to you? We already saw in the first game, Ben, they went toe-to-toe, each team 1,000,000 points. They racked up 500 yards of offense on the Cincinnati defense. But let me ask you a question. What defense has been better as of late? It's Cincinnati's. Way better than what Pittsburgh is. So you're not racking up 500 yards of offense again on Cincinnati. This defense is in trouble for Pittsburgh, and that's ultimately what may make them have to face the Ravens next week, Ben.
If the Steelers were to lose and the Chargers are to win on Sunday afternoon in Las Vegas, LA very intently looking at what happens on Saturday in the AFC North, the Steelers would be the 6th seed, a road trip to the Charm City to a Ravens team where they played just a couple of weeks ago and got beat bad by 17 points. And Joe, we know for Cincinnati, it's been the offense that has kept them even in this spot, despite an 0-3 winless start with a chance to even qualify for the postseason. And Joe Burrow playing at an MVP level. 284 in a hook, his passing yards prop. 2.5 passing touchdowns. 8 consecutive games now for Joey B, which is an NFL record, by the way, with at least 250 passing yards and at least 3 passing touchdowns in the same game. He will need to be sensational once again on the road in Pittsburgh on Saturday night. The first game of Saturday in Baltimore. We break down next in the rest of the Week 18 slate on the other side of the break on the early line. Live right here on the early line, we welcome you to hour number 2 on a Football Friday. He is Joe Ranieri. I am Ben Stevens. We get you set for everything that you need over these next 2 hours leading into week number 18 and the regular season finale around the National Football League, which starts tomorrow on a Saturday with 2 games that will decide the AFC North Division, who might be the 5 seed in the AFC playoff picture, and potentially that last and final wild card spot around the conference. But we'll get you set for every game, our 2 tomorrow and our 14 on Sunday, that will determine the end of the regular season, the playoff picture in the National Football League, and also who's going to have the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft come late April. Joe, basically every game has some significance to the overall picture of the NFL, both in the postseason and beyond around the league.
Yeah, it's week 18. A lot of duds, though, Ben, but a lot, ironically enough, still to be determined here in the NFL. And I guess this is what they wanted, right? They still wanted meaningful football in week 18. Yep. Well, we barely got it, but we got some of it.
Listen, in a lot of the matchups, we have at least one team that has some motivation or a mentality or needs something to happen to earn a playoff spot or maybe earn a better draft position. We'll talk all about that. Our first game of Week 18, the final weekend in the regular season, is in Baltimore tomorrow afternoon, set for a 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time kick in the Charm City. The Ravens and the Browns in a divisional duel. If Baltimore wins, as you can see, they will claim the AFC North. It is a 19.5-point spread against the Cleveland Browns, who are starting not Jameis Winston, not Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but as of the latest reports, Bailey Zappi is going to get his first start in Cleveland. Total is 41 and a hook. This is one of the largest spreads we have seen in an NFL game in a very long time. So let me ask you, Joe, a quick two-part question, if you'll allow it. Number one, just to get it out of the way, is there any chance that Baltimore loses this game outright? And then number two, how can the Ravens, if at all, cover this number?
It's an outrageous number, Ben. I mean, we're almost up to 20 points. The only justification to have a line this big here, Ben, would be because the defense that the Ravens are playing is so terrible that they can't help but score points. But that's not the case with Cleveland. Cleveland's defense was good enough to beat them the first go around. And the defense is certainly decent. I mean, their last four games, the total points, Ben, 41, 38, 30, and 23. This is not a defense that's rolling over by any stretch of the imagination here. And listen, Baltimore, all they need to do, and Harbaugh knows this, is win the game and move on. So the idea that they're going to keep their foot on the gas in this one when the game might be out of reach, I'm not buying it here at all. It's gotten to the point where now I got to take Cleveland. As terrible as that is, it's strictly a numbers game, Ben. There is no way I can't take the points here with a Cleveland team who defensively, you don't think they know what the spread is here, Ben? You think that defense is going to take kindly to thinking that, you're going to blow us out here, that the spread is almost 20? I think Cleveland here. I don't think they win it, but I also don't think the Ravens, it's do or die that the Ravens cover this spread. I think they just want the win. I think they'll get it, but I don't think they're going to get it by more than 19.5 points.
Where this line stands right now, it would be the largest spread in favor of an NFL team in an NFL regular season game since 2021. Again, because of some of the uncertainty, at least on the beautiful sports book that sponsors our show, that being FanDuel, there's no props out for this game as of this moment. There's not even a first half line, which I think, Joe, would be a very logical thought of how to approach this game. The Flock come out. They beat the Browns early in the opening two quarters. Maybe then they rest Lamar Jackson midway through the third quarter, whatever it might be. That line, what would you think? First half line in some other spots, probably 13 and a half, right? It's not just like an even split of 19 and a hook. I don't think it would be like 10 and a half, but even so, probably at least double digits, right?
It was 9.5, Ben. So as of, I believe, Tuesday, but now it's closer to 11.5, even 12.5.
Yeah, I think it would be at least double digits. It's not a bad way to look. And again, Baltimore needs this game. A win, and it's the AFC North Championship for the Ravens in a home game. Who will that be against? Now let's get to Sunday. Joe, the Kansas City Chiefs have already locked up the number one overall seed in the AFC. They're good. Andy Reid has told us he is playing the reserves for KC. That means Carson Wentz is starting and a lot of the other backups on both sides of the football. However, for Denver in Mile High, in their regular season finale, the Broncos are playing everybody because with a victory, Denver in year two under Sean Payton with a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix earns that final playoff berth in the AFC. And this line has ballooned. It opened north of a touchdown. Now it's north of double digits. 10.5 point spread in favor of Denver. Joe, same kind of question I asked you about the Baltimore-Cleveland game. Step number one, does Denver win outright? Step number two, will the Broncos cover? Now is a double-digit favorite.
So we saw a similar situation 4 years ago, Ben. Kansas City had locked up the number one seed in the AFC West, and it hosted, I believe, Vegas, the Raiders there to end the season. Mahomes and everyone else did not play in that game, and the Raiders ended up winning 38-21. So a similar scenario is shaping up here in this game. The difference is the Raiders, well, we know they were eliminated in that game 4 years ago. Denver has to win in order to reach the playoffs, like you said. So this is a team that will lay it all out there because they realize there is no tomorrow. They still control their destiny. So they will have an opportunity here to lay it all out, make sure this game's over quicker than later, right? That's what they want to do. They certainly have the ability to be able to do that against the backups. But again, Ben, you're asking even the backups of the Chiefs to roll over here at 10.5. They just need to win. There's no style points.
There is not, right? And if the Broncos are up 24-10 in the fourth quarter, and they are very comfortable, or 27-10 even, right? Because we're talking a 3-score game becomes a 2-score rather quickly, and that additional hook on the double digit is a big, big thing. It's not just Carson Wentz in favor of Patrick Mahomes, right? It's the starting offensive line not playing, the starting defensive line. Everybody for the Chiefs are going to be a reserve. But are they 10.5 points worse than the Broncos? There's something in me, Joe. If I had to bet the game, I'm not going to. Don't love a game where one team is supremely motivated and the other is already looking forward to their opening divisional round game back inside Arrowhead, where the Chiefs once again will have home field advantage throughout the AFC postseason. If I had to bet it, I'd probably take 10.5 with Carson Wentz and KC and hope for a little bit of luster out of a guy that should have won an NFL MVP award now about a decade ago in the NFL. Joe, we'll get more into this game on the other side. But again, the Broncos win, that's it. They earn the final spot in the AFC postseason. They'll be the 7th seed in the AFC playoff picture. If the Broncos lose, it opens the door for the Bengals, who play tomorrow night. But most importantly, for the Miami Dolphins, who if Denver loses and the Dolphins win, it's not Joe Burrow and the Bengals, it's Miami and whoever is playing quarterback into the AFC postseason. The Dolphins, a slight road favorite in MetLife. Might it also be the final NFL game for Aaron Rodgers? Ooh, the stakes. Next. All of the stakes for every single matchup in the regular season finale weekend around the NFL. It is week number 18. So again, Denver in pole position to be the final playoff team into the AFC, that number 7 seed, the last and final in the postseason picture in that conference as a double-digit favorite, now laying 10.5 at home against the Chiefs backups. Denver just needs a win. They are in to the AFC playoff picture. If for whatever reason Carson Wentz and Kansas City can play spoiler, it opens the door for the Dolphins and the Bengals. But Miami, first and foremost, with a victory and a Broncos loss, the Dolphins would be the 7th seed in the AFC playoff picture. But as of this moment, Joe, it ain't going to be easy for the Fins. Reports say it is doubtful that Tua Tagovailoa is going to play for Miami, which would mean Tyler Huntley once again in MetLife in East Rutherford against a Jets team that for the 7th time in the last 14 years they have missed the postseason, are going to finish with 5 wins or less in a regular season. Just dreadful football for Gang Green. Might it be the final game that Aaron Rodgers plays in a Jets uniform? Might it be the final game that Aaron Rodgers plays in his National Football League career? The Dolphins, an ever so slight favorite in MetLife. Will Miami at least win the football game to maybe give themselves a chance playing at the same time as the Broncos and the Chiefs?
Listen, it's clear one of these teams has mailed it in, and pretty much the players are saying so. And another team has won, 6 of their last 8 games to even have a shot to be alive in Week 18. It's clear the Dolphins have been playing better football and more motivated football. And listen, Snoop Huntley last week, Ben, he had 115.5 passer rating. He ran for 52 yards and a touchdown, and he did exactly what they were supposed to do, beat the Cleveland Browns in less than ideal conditions. So I've got no problem thinking he's going to go ahead and beat a dysfunctional New York Jets team that has quite honestly mailed it in, and the players are saying so. So the Dolphins have also owned this series. They've won 4 straight, 12 of the last 14. It will be not the ideal weather in your neck of the woods there, Ben, on Sunday, but the Jets team that's lost 6 of 7 was completely, quit last week in Buffalo. No reason for us to think that Miami and Snoop Huntley can't go into MetLife and win this game.
Absolutely so. If it's Tua Tagovailoa, great. Get the number right now. He has not been ruled out yet, although it does not seem likely that he plays in this game for Miami. If it's Tyler Huntley, good with that too. 22 of 26, 225 and a touchdown against the Browns. Was Miami's leading rusher with 52 yards on the ground and a score as well. I believe this would be start number 4 of the year for Snoop Huntley with Miami and Mike McDaniel. Took you long enough, but maybe they finally understood how to organize an offensive scheme for Snoop. And Joe, as we know, as long as Miami stays with a minus in front of its name and price to win the football game outright under Mike McDaniel, they're pretty darn good at doing that. As a favorite, since McDaniel took over in South Florida in 2022, the Dolphins, when expected to win a game, often do. 23-7, straight up. All they would need here, all the odds are really anticipating. Here are the playoff prices for the 3 teams still alive in that wild card chase in the AFC. Again, Denver, 10.5-point favorite. Minus 650 to see the postseason and to be that 7 seed. The Dolphins plus 680. The Bengals would need both a Broncos and a Dolphins loss to even have a chance, but they will set the table in Saturday night's doubleheader. So since he will not know its playoff outlook, they will be the first of 3 to go, which is important, of course, for the motivation aspect. Now we go to the NFC, and specifically the NFC South, the only division still at stake in that conference entering this regular, actually not, NFC North, game 272. My apologies. But still, a big-time weekend in the NFC South. Pretty simple for the Buccaneers, Joe. The Saints have already been eliminated. They have not looked great the last 2 weeks with Spencer Rattler under center. The Buccaneers, as a 2-touchdown favorite at home, need a win. And with a win, the Bucs win the NFC South. In one additional wrinkle, because the Bucs need to win the game just to earn a playoff spot and a division, that could be really big for the playoff picture as a whole. Because again, the Buccaneers win, they claim the NFC South. The Buccaneers win, and the Rams lose to the Seahawks at home on Sunday. LA would fall to the 4 seed. Tampa would be the 3 seed. So Joe, again, with these big spreads, having one side that needs it, the other side that is already thinking about 2025. Will the Bucs win outright first? Can Tampa cover as nearly a 2-touchdown favorite at home second?
Yes, absolutely. They can cover this, and they have covered this. I mean, over the last 3 games, they're averaging a little over 7 yards of play, Ben, and with a division title at stake, there's not going to be any taking the foot off the gas here by Baker Mayfield and company. Plus, they're facing a Saints team that has managed to score 10 total points in the last 2 games here. They put up 51 in the first game. They intercepted Spencer Rattler twice. Todd Bowles in that defense, what do you think they're second crack at him? What do you think they're going to do in this one, Ben? They will leave nothing a chance in this one. Expect them to keep their foot on the gas.
With Darren Rizzi, the Saints have been competitive until the final 2 weeks where they just have their limitations, as we have seen. With Spencer Rattler in the second half against the Commanders, of course, that game was decided by just a single point. There is the team motivation, then there is the individual. Mike Evans is in his 11th career season in the National Football League. Every year with the Buccaneers, he is 85 yards shy of his 11th consecutive season, all 11 years in the National Football League with 1,000 receiving yards. The Bucs need it, and Mike Evans needs it. And let me tell you, Baker Mayfield and that offense, they know it as well. What else is at stake in the NFC? Next. So, the NFC South in that divisional championship at stake on Sunday. The Buccaneers now in pole position after Atlanta's overtime loss in the nation's capital or outside the nation's capital to end out Week 17's Sunday slate to the Commanders. The Buccaneers are a 13.5-point favorite against the Saints. As Joe said right before the break, Todd Bowles in Tampa laying it all out there. If the Bucs win, that's it. They claim the NFC South for a 4th consecutive year. But at the same time, the Falcons will be holding on hope in a home game in the A against the Carolina Panthers. If for some reason the Buccaneers get beat as a 2-touchdown home favorite, Atlanta just needs a victory over the Panthers to claim the NFC South. And Joe, with these games going off simultaneously, a lot of scoreboard watching, but a lot of motivation at least to begin. What's your approach to the Falcons and the Panthers in Atlanta on Sunday?
Yeah, so this would be an interesting one, a game in which, Ben, I automatically bet the over early in the week because, let's face it here, neither defense even remotely close to being competitive, I think, at this point. And both offenses really starting to click here and fast track and in divisional matchup. And we've talked about it now all year long. We talked Mike Blewett and I even on Sundays for in-game live. This division, you'd be crazy sweating out unders when these teams play one another. All year long, every one of these divisional affairs in the NFC South have been absolute shootouts, Ben. I don't see how we ain't getting one here, too. It just feels like this is a game that's going to land well into the 50s, not the 40s, and I'm okay with that. I am absolutely looking at the over in this one.
Joe, for the Dirty Birds, a team that played to the over last week against the Commanders, it was the final touchdown in regulation from Michael Penix Jr. to Kyle Pitts that pushed us to an over and then in OT. Atlanta's only played 6 games to the over this year. They've actually been a pretty stout under team for most of this season. But 4 of those 6 overs in the 5 divisional games Atlanta has played this season, including their first matchup against Carolina. Again, unlikely for the Falcons. They will win the NFC South, and thus the year will be considered a disaster or at least a failure. But Michael Penix Jr. seems to be the quarterback of the future. They'll figure out what happens with Kirk Cousins later. I got a feeling the Panthers make that game a little bit pesky. Like, you'll look up in the third quarter, and the game will be within at least a single possession. Now let's get to the rest of the NFC and seeds at stake around the wild card spots. Both the Commanders and the Packers have clinched a playoff berth. But here is what is on the line. If Washington wins, they're the 6th seed. Green Bay, even with a victory over Chicago, would be the 7th seed. If the Commanders lose in Dallas against the Cowboys, then Green Bay with a victory could be the 6th seed. That is important because the 7th seed would have to go immediately to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles, something Washington knows well, although they did pull off the upset just that game was in Landover, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of things happening right now in the NFL, but they know how difficult that game would be. So Washington wants a game in Dallas on Sunday afternoon. Joe, I feel good about this one. Line early in the week was a flat field goal. I said, what? The Commanders need this game. They don't want to head to Philadelphia to start a playoff run. I bet the Commanders laying 3. It's now 6.5. How much does Washington win this game by at the Star on Sunday?
Yeah, probably as much as they want to, Ben, at this point. I could absolutely see the Commanders, and let's face it, their head coach now, Ben, was the former DC in Dallas, and there is absolutely no way that he wants to lose in front of his former boss there. I cannot see that. I think he'll have the defense ready to make life miserable for Dallas. There are an awful lot of incentive-based opportunities for players in this game that we should keep an eye on, mostly on the Washington side there with Austin Eckler comes to mind. Dante Fowler comes to mind. There's a few guys that need big games for big paychecks here, Ben. I would look at Washington all day long in this one.
We'll have a pick from the Packers and the Bears later on in our pick 6, but just to show you the number, Green Bay a double-digit favorite at home in Lambeau against a team that has lost double-digit games consecutively. That's Chicago, 10 straight losses. Mike Blewett on a Football Friday. Say less next. Live right here on the early line on Sports Grid. It is a Football Friday. to set the stage for week number 18 around the National Football League, the regular season finale weekend, which means on a Football Friday, Mike Blewett is here in understanding of the stakes and what is on the line for each and every individual matchup all weekend long. Our doubleheader tomorrow on a Saturday. 14 games on Sunday. Big Blue, locked and loaded for a huge regular season finale weekend around the NFL.
Absolutely. Huge games, obviously, on the docket. We'll kick it off with the Sunday nighter, I'm sure. But we also have some of those other games that you guys were just previewing that are a little difficult to discern because of the amount of players that are out.
Yeah, it is difficult, Blewett, from a motivation perspective, almost like bowl season. But before we even get to that, hey, Happy New Year, Mike Blewett. Thank you for being here with us to kick off 2025. This is the last official day I have heard that you can wish somebody a Happy New Year on January 3rd. All right, let's get set for this weekend, Blue. We'll get to game 272 in the Motor City in just a little bit. But with all the stakes, in full transparency, Germanary and I ran just a little bit behind. So let's go out to the NFC playoff picture outside of the 1 seed. We talked about the NFC South. The Buccaneers, with a victory as a 2-touchdown favorite, claim the division against the Saints. But because the Bucs need to win just to get into the playoffs and win the division, it's all hands on deck for Tampa. So with a win, the NFC South, and with a win, the Bucs might be in prime position to be the 3 seed in the NFC because the Rams don't need to win. And as we have heard, Blue, from Sean McVay, who often, if his starters don't need to play, he doesn't send them out there. The starters will not play for the Rams on Sunday as LA hosts Seattle. 6.5-point spread now in favor of the Seahawks. That is important for the NFC playoff position. Will Seattle cruise to a victory in Los Angeles with mostly Rams reserves in the game?
Yeah, I haven't seen Jimmy G in a minute. You'll get a chance this Sunday. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about player incentives. I heard you guys discussing it earlier, and Geno Smith has a couple of big ones as well. What gets really funky about these games is that I could see Seattle jumping out to a lead, right? In fact, you probably take a look at some Seattle first half overs, but the second halves of the games where there's just no motivation could be a total mess. That's what makes it very difficult to bet on these games. So I think you try to find different angles. So give me Seattle first half in a game like this, because I think they can come out playing for some pride. It would be unique for them to miss the playoffs with 10 wins, and that's what they're lining up to do, already eliminated, but likely to win this game. Sean McVay will coach to his dying breath, but there's only so much you can do, to your point, Ben, when a lot of reserves are in. The expansion of practice squads, too, in the NFL since COVID allows for a greater shift in starters to be moved to a weekly rest period and bringing guys in off the practice squad. So there's a little bit more flexibility there than there used to be, and we're seeing it at play this week.
It's interesting, Blewett, because Geno Smith has got a couple of very expensive incentives coming his way this game. He needs 186 passing yards for another $2 million incentive. And if he finishes over 69.75% his season completions, he gets another $2 million. So he needs to be very efficient. Does he get over the 106 yards? Are we betting Geno Smith props, knowing that, well, he knows he's got $4 million out on the table?
Yeah, I would be in on the Geno Smith props. I think there's a lot of content being put out there this week about you should bet on every player that has incentives, and not everyone lines up with the game script. I think Seattle's going to come out and play hard. It's a first-year head coach. He wants to get to the 10-win mark. So I think for them it makes sense. For somebody like J.K. Dobbins that has a big incentive, it makes sense. For Mike Evans, who's going to be a big part of the game plan already in a Bucs team that's going to try to put up 50, that makes a lot of sense. Some of the other ones, Von Miller to get a sack, I don't know. There's a lot of randomness when it comes to it. I think you bet on those players that are big parts of the game plans, that are motivated to play hard and or win.
Yeah. From a spread perspective, Blue, one of my favorite handicapping games of the weekend will be something we could see change in about 24 hours. The Chargers and the Raiders in Las Vegas, depending on the results of Saturday. If the Ravens beat the Browns, they're nearly a 20-point favorite. Baltimore wins the AFC North. Why am I mentioning that? Because then we go to Saturday night in the Steel City. The Steelers might not be able to win the division, but Pittsburgh is going to want to win against the Bengals to claim the 5 seed and head to Houston and not their divisional mates in Baltimore. If Pittsburgh beats Cincy, the Bengals also need the game to keep their playoff hopes alive, then the Chargers are kind of stuck. They're just going to be the 6th seed. Currently, LA is a 4.5-point favorite against a Raiders team that has nothing to play for. Las Vegas, after winning 2 straight, can't even have the number 1 overall pick anymore. They've been eliminated from first overall pick contention as well. Fluid, if the Chargers need this game, I think this line balloons up to past a touchdown if they can be the 5 seed. You want to go to Houston. You don't want to go to the Charm City to take on the Ravens. If the Chargers don't need this game because Pittsburgh wins tomorrow night, then the Raiders could end up as a home favorite. How do you approach betting this game right here, right now?
I think it's fair for you to call out that there is value to be had right now based on not knowing the results. However, this game really can change dramatically. I was just talking about the Dobbins incentive. Well, Dobbins probably doesn't play if the Steelers win and the Chargers are locked in. And by the way, any coach that tells you they don't really care who they play in the first round, lie. Nobody wants to go to Baltimore and play Lamar in that first week. Not the Steelers, not the Chargers. Nobody wants to do that. So teams are supremely motivated on seeding, particularly in the AFC this year. And Ben, I would honestly right now, I think this is a stay away game. There's too much riding on tomorrow night's result for me to go all in on the Chargers to try to capture value right now. It can change too dramatically, and Herbert and Dobbins and others wouldn't play.
So, can't think of Harbaugh. I just don't see Harbaugh as a guy that would just lay down and let the Raiders win, a 3rd straight game here? Where did they drop in the draft if the Raiders win? I get it, Pierce. You're coaching for your future here and your job, but my goodness, I don't see Harbaugh laying down for anybody. Do you?
That's a fair point, Joe. But in that instance, then let's take an under because then the Chargers are going to play defense. The Raiders are challenged to score points against anybody. The 25 points they put up against the Saints, come on. The Saints are a 0 right now. They're one of the worst teams in the league at the moment. So I think you're playing for an under then, and at 40 and a half, that makes a lot of sense to me. 20-17, something like that keeps you under.
Yep.
Yeah, it is a good look as well for a Chargers team that has played a lot of overs recently, but might get back to true Harbaugh football. Blew it in the final minute of this segment before we go elsewhere around Week 18. Of course, it all ends in Detroit. Game 272 between the Lions and the Vikings. You know the stakes. Everybody knows the stakes. We know the stakes. What do you make of the bets for this game? The Lions a 2.5-point favorite. The total astronomically high at 56 and a hook.
Yeah, a huge total, 31-29, a 31-point first half the last time they played. So a lot of points to be had. I think the first half total of 27.5 is very interesting to me. But do we really think on the last game of the season and a Vikings defense that has stepped up pretty consistently throughout the year is going to allow this to be a 60-point total? I have a lot of internal debate about it. It's just that the first half total of 27.5. Both teams are so good the first half. I like it.
I think that's a very good look, Blue. We'll continue to go around Week 18 next. Live right here on this Football Friday on the early line on Sports Grid. Game 272, the regular season finale in the truest form on Sunday night in Detroit. Again, the Lions, 2.5-point favorite. Total stands at 56 and a hook. Blue, you know the stakes. We know the stakes. Everybody does by now, but just a reminder. Winner of this game claims the NFC North and the number 1 overall seed in the conference. The loser also in to the postseason, but would have to go on the road in the opening round as the 5 seed, the top wild card spot in that conference playoff picture. And Blewett, there has been some debate. who that impacts more. The Lions on the road throughout the postseason, or trying to go somewhere the Lions have never been, a Super Bowl with home field advantage through the Motor City. Could the Vikings, as a road team, truly be a conference contender in the NFC? So as we look at the outlook for both Detroit and Minnesota, what do you make of these prices for the future, the postseason and beyond, for the Lions and Vikings entering Week 18?
I think it's indicative of something we've talked about consistently on these Friday shows, and Joe and I talk about on Sundays on In Game Live. There's still a bias against the Vikings, and I think it's because of Sam Darnold. I don't think people are paying attention to how good they've been, the style in which they win games, and it's right there in front of you. This also doesn't take into account that I think the Lions are awesome, and they're probably the most fun team to watch offensively, and they have 12 players on defense that have hit IR. They might get Anzalone back on Sunday night. That's a might, not definitely. And it's not taking into account all of these injuries that factor into teams not being able to make Super Bowl runs. When the Chiefs got into the Super Bowl against the Bucs, people ignored the offensive line injuries, and it impacted the game significantly. Last year, when the Niners lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs, they had lost multiple defensive players health-wise throughout the end of the season and into the playoffs. You have to factor it in when you're talking about teams' chances to win the Super Bowl. For Detroit fans, I hope you finally win one. And to Vikings fans, your history in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl is far worse than even the Lions is. So I'm praying for you as well. But right now, I think the Vikings are a better team to make a Super Bowl run than the Lions.
Bro, as you're talking here, I'm watching more and more money come in on your Pittsburgh Steelers here, down to -1.5, -1. Is part of that money coming from you, my friend? Are you backing your Steelers here at home as a dog?
Well, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers at home dog are money, right? We know that. They are also a team that in the last 3 weeks have scored 10, 17, and 13 points offensively. It is not just about George Pickens. It's about their long-standing inability in short yardage situation and in the red zone to convert. And that is their fatal flaw. We talked about it when they were 10-3. It was looking good after they beat Cincinnati 44-38, but it has fallen apart since. They need to find a way back to converting. Now, the Bengals defense is a pretty soft landing, and I think a lot of people are expecting big points in this one like there were in the last game, but I'd imagine the Steelers try to take the air out of the ball in this one. I think they play a close game. I have to bet on my Steelers here, and I know that Cincinnati is going to be a dogfight like they were in the last game. The Steelers had opportunities to put the Bengals away the last time they played, and they really didn't until the very end of the game. But I'm going to go with the Steelers here as a home dog. If the offensive problems aren't fixed, you'll know by halftime that their season is done.
The Steelers won 6 of their first 7 with Russell Wilson. Won their 6 of their first 7 with Russell Wilson under center, but we all knew the back half of this schedule for the Steelers is where it got really difficult. Pittsburgh enters the regular season finale losing 3 straight. Pittsburgh needs to win even if Baltimore wins before them tomorrow and claims the AFC North to be the 5 seed. That is ultra important since he needs to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. Now let's get to Sunday and some other games around the NFL. The Giants kind of idiotically beat the Colts last week. Still want to win football games. We understand that. Guys are professionals. But because of it, New York no longer controls the destiny of the number 1 overall pick. The Giants still in the running, but it looks unlikely. The Eagles have locked up the 2 seed. Would we see a chase for history out of Saquon Barkley on Sunday? We heard earlier this week that will not be the case. The starters resting for Philadelphia, and yet, Blewett, the Birds remain a full field goal favorite at home against the G-Man. How do you see the game playing out?
It's an interesting one, likely to get Tanner McKee under center after Kenny Pickett was hurt in relief of Jalen Hurts the other day. He took a pretty nasty shot, did Pickett. I am not as down on the Giants for winning that game. Joe and I watched every second of it. That was more Colts failure than Giants victory, and Locke actually had a historic game. Giants fans, I get why they're fired up, but there's no guarantee that Shador Sanders or Cam Ward are going to fix your problems. There are many other problems with the roster, and if they really need one of those quarterbacks and fall in love with them, they can trade up and make it the player of the future. But as far as this game is concerned, I think the reason it stays this way is because of the style in which Philly plays. They can run the ball regardless of who's back there. It'll be a lot of Kenneth Gainwell, and I think he would have the ability to have a pretty big game if there's Gainwell props that get released at some point. So I understand why this is a tight spread. That's definitely the best game that the Giants played all season was the other day, and I don't know that a team like that has it in them to go back to back. But I still feel uncomfortable with Philly laying the 3. I think because it's a flat 3, if you get it to 3.5, I probably end up taking the Giants, but wouldn't be surprised if Philly escapes with a field goal victory playing a lot of reserves.
And as it stands right now, Blue, we look at one other game in New England. Sorry, Joe. The Patriots at home hosting the Buffalo Bills. We expect to see Josh Allen early on Sunday to preserve his 114 consecutive start streak, but that might be it. If the Patriots lose, that's it. New England claims the number 1 overall pick. What's the best bet in Foxborough?
I would not bet on the Patriots at all right now. Too many rumors about the coach being gone. I think you have to be done with it. The Bills had nothing to play for a couple of years ago when Miami did, and they put up 50 on them. It's that kind of team.
Yeah, listen, I think Buffalo probably is the right side still in New England. More on this Football Friday next. Live right here on the early line, we continue to break down every single angle with all the stakes of week number 18. Mike Blewett here for a third consecutive segment. Now, Blue, this is a really intriguing game in my estimation in Tennessee. Not because of its significance or implications. Nothing truly is at stake. Houston is locked into the 4 seed, but trying to play better football, I guess you could say, entering the postseason. The Titans could be the 1 seed if the Patriots lose at home to the Bills, and Tennessee also loses that football game. A lot of teams that are looking to lose, but Tennessee is a slight favorite. D'Amico Ryans this week, though, of course, head coach of the Texans, said everybody will be prepared to play. Because the Texans, despite winning the AFC South for a second consecutive year, I don't think you could call it, Blue, the best brand of football we have seen Houston or C.J. Stroud play in the last 2 seasons. So knowing D'Amico Ryans is saying everybody might be out there, should the Texans be catching 1.5 or any bit of sense on that money line?
Well, I think everything you said is right, and it would make some sense if they went out there for a half and tried to get the offense on the same page, because the offense hasn't scored a point in a couple of weeks, right? They got shut out on Christmas, and it's just a bad scene for them right now, generally. But I don't also believe D'Amico Ryans when he says that. I think he'll rest guys as he feels the need to, and I would not expect any of those guys to play the full game. But we'll have to see as the game goes. That being said, I pinch hit for you last week, Ben, in your pick 6, and my money line underdog was the Titans, and they couldn't get it done. Joe and I have watched this team all year, and you can pick different teams at different points of the year at who's worse than who, and the Giants have looked the worst. Tennessee consistently plays really bad football. Constant penalties, doesn't convert first downs, really bad on third down. I just don't. They're not a team that I can bet on, whether they're getting 1.5, laying 1.5. I think the Texans just overall can do enough defensively to limit the Titans. This could be a super low scoring game. I'm talking like a 13-10 type of game. So I'm taking the under, and I would not bet on the Titans here.
The funny part is no team has ever lost 14 or more games against the spread in a single season.
Let's
Guess
go,
what? Titans. Yeah, they go Titans. 2-14 this year. That could be absolutely historic, Titans. That's what you're looking for there. All right, let's go big picture here, Blewett. As far as if I keep hearing this, we know that the Bills and Josh Allen, he's going to start the game. He's going to keep that Iron Man streak going. But what are we thinking here for MVP? Has he done enough? The market at minus 350 certainly seems to think so. But I am amazed at the amount of people running to take Lamar Jackson at this plus 230. What are you thinking?
You can make a case for Lamar, a really good one. Obviously, having a better year this year statistically than he was last year, certainly in terms of efficiency. But that's not what this is about at this stage. A story has been told. I think the hay is in the barn on this one. And I don't think that trying to take Lamar, I think taking Lamar at plus 230 right now is interesting in discussion, but I think it's a waste. I think Allen already has the MVP. They're going to be 13-3, maybe 14-3, a better record than Baltimore. And I think that's what it's about. It's not about who's the best player and who was statistically. It's combining that with the story that's been told. And it's that the Bills were not expected to be this good this year. And Allen has been awesome. He's put up historic rushing touchdown numbers and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely so, Blue. Josh Allen has not thrown for 4,800 yards and 45 touchdowns, perhaps, but he has also made history with his individual performances and where Buffalo has been this season. Quickly, final 40 seconds of this segment. The Super Bowl 59 odds entering week number 18. Is there a bet or a team that you would wager on entering the regular season finales?
I think Chiefs Packers was my preseason call. I've obviously lost some faith in the Packers. I profess my respect for the Vikings. So I think the Vikings at 8-1 are an interesting shot. The way they play on both sides of the ball, how well coached they are, is an interesting little bit of a long shot. But don't count out the Bills this year. I think they have a real shot to knock off the Chiefs.
We'll see if that is to be the case. Mike Blewett, have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you on Sunday. Hour 3 up next. We welcome you to hour number 3, our third and final on this Football Friday. Entering the final weekend of the National Football League regular season, it is week number 18. So much to get to here in this third and final hour, including our pick 6 for the last time in the NFL regular season. The best bets and picks and previews that we have for the regular season finales all around the National Football League. He is Joe Ranieri. I am Ben Stevens. We bring you up until 11 a.m. Eastern time with all the stakes, all that is on the line, playoff bids, playoff spots, divisional championships, maybe even draft positions as well around the National Football League.
I cannot wait here, Ben, for what is and it's hard to believe here, 18 weeks now, about to be in the books in the NFL, postseason just around the corner. And, of course, now it gets real interesting in the lead up to March Madness. So welcome 2025.
Yes, indeed. Third day of a new year and a great first weekend of NFL action in 2025. That is the final of the regular season. And, Joe, again, it does bear repeating. There is no better way that you could possibly dream of to end out a regular season with a game that is as significant, with as many important stakes and implications as we will see on Sunday night in Game 272 between the Lions and the Vikings. 14-2 Detroit, 14-2 Minnesota. Divisional foes battling in one game for the NFC North crown and the number 1 overall seed in the NFC to have home field advantage throughout the entirety of a postseason. For a Lions team hoping to make history, to become the first ever Detroit team to play in a Super Bowl, let alone win a Lombardi trophy, and for a Vikings team that is so overexceeded expectation to continue to prove people wrong and prove they are a true conference and Super Bowl contender. Again, as good as it gets. But how are the people seeing the actual game and the football result itself? We'll find out together to start this third and final hour in Fade the Public. The Lions, a 2.5-point home favorite, the largest total we have seen since 2019, as it currently stands at 56.5. A lot of offense expected, despite the stakes of Sunday night in game number 272, the last and final of the 2024 NFL regular season. So at SportsGrid on Twitter, what is the best bet for Sunday night? The Lions as a slight home favorite, less than a field goal. The Vikings catching 2.5 points. The over of that total of 56 and a hook, or the under of that number. A couple of things, Joe, stand out to me. Both the winning bet, 56 and a half, most people expecting points, most people expecting the Lions to cover as a short 2.5 point home favorite, but also the least amount of votes in this poll. That would be the under of 56 and a half, only 7.4% as I see those live results right here, right now. Joe, to me, that should say something about the offense expected, because even 56 points keeps us under our total for game 272.
Yeah, and it's one of those spots here, Ben, where if this is a true contrarian situation here where the public, we know they're going to love the over here, Ben, all day long, just like the poll says. But if you're going contrarian, when everyone's running left, you got to run right, Ben. And that tells me the under is the play in this game. 56 and a half is a huge number, and I get both of these teams certainly have put up enough points to warrant this kind of look, but it's all things being equal here. They do have two defenses will be playing in this game here that have already played against one another, Ben, and both these teams already are in the playoffs. So sure, it would be great to get the bye in the 1 seed, but when push comes to shove, I'm not sure they're opening up the entire playbook here for this game, Ben. I think this game's going to be closer than people anticipate, but I also think it's a first one to 24 or 27 points wins, which will give us plenty enough room for an under in this one.
The first time these two teams played back in week number 7. The game was in Minneapolis. It was the only time this year the Lions were booked as a dog. Just a point and a half. Detroit won outright in a shootout, 31-29, which of course is 60 total points, would be over this total. The Vikings have played to an over in all 3 games against the double-digit win teams within the NFC North. That first game against the Lions, each of its 2 this year against Green Bay, including last week. Each of those 3 games featuring 52 points. One of the lines that will stand out to me the most this year, week number 1 for Sam Darnold and Minnesota on the road in MetLife. Just a 1.5 favorite against the New York Giants. Minnesota, of course, won that game comfortably to start undefeated, a perfect 5-0. But from weeks 2 to 4, when the odds really had not caught up yet, and understandably so, to this Vikings team and just how good Minnesota would be now with 14 wins, the Vikes were an underdog. Weeks 2 through 4, they won outright as an underdog. Minnesota has not got any points since the opening month of this NFL season. And Detroit is still one of the best cover teams in the NFL. In fact, the best cover team in the National Football League under Dan Campbell. 48-22 against the spread. That's a cover percentage of 68.6. They are the only NFL team that has covered in more than 62% of its games since the start of that 2021 campaign. And this year as a favorite, 10-5 against the spread. Something we haven't discussed, Joe. Again, 56.5 is the total. The expected outcome is probably not 17-14. Could it be 28-24, north of 50, but still under? Absolutely so. And if we get to 50 or even the high 40s, we know the offensive stars will be on display. Sam Darnold, 283.5, his passing yards prop. Justin Jefferson, who has been elite this year, 91 and a hook. You see the number for Jordan Addison as well. 271.5 for Jared Goff. Jahmyr Gibbs, 87.5 on the ground. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 75 and a hook. It should be noted, Aaron Jones does not have a listed number, at least on that board. Of course, a quad contusion that he suffered in the matchup against Green Bay this past Sunday.
And I will say this, guess who is a complete full participant at practice this week and is going to play in this game? Alex Anzalone and Jack Campbell, the two starting linebackers for Detroit, will be back for this game against Minnesota. So they're starting to get a little healthier. And don't forget, they already beat Minnesota without Hutchinson. He was already out for the season when they played them the first go-around. Now they're getting some reinforcements in the linebacking spot. Their captain out there. I would look to fade Sam Darnold here, and I'd also look to fade one or the other, Jefferson or Addison. Pick your poison here. I tend to think they'll let anybody but Justin Jefferson beat him in this one.
Yeah, but even if you don't let Justin Jefferson beat you, getting close to 90 has not been an issue for J-Jet this year. Both of the quarterbacks, by the way, have a passing touchdown number of a 1.5. And they're both juiced to the over at minus 200 or greater. Just make it 2.5 and let us bet that somebody's going to throw 3. Get out of town. For each quarterback to throw 3, by the way, Jared Goff is plus 178. Sammy D is plus 188. Again, those are the stakes. The Lions enter week 18, a 2-1 favorite to win the NFC. Minnesota third best price behind both Detroit and Philly at plus 360. Winner wins the NFC North and the 1 seed in the NFC. The loser, the top wild card team in that 5 spot. Plenty more around week 18 up next. As we get you set for week number 18 around the National Football League, there are games with stakes. I would say 14 of 16, whether it's a playoff spot, a playoff position, that being seed line or the NFL draft. And there are some that lack a little bit of those things on the line for this regular season finale weekend. A game that we showed you the odds, but it didn't really break down. That game is at Lambeau Field. The Packers a 10.5-point favorite against a team that has lost 10 consecutive games in Chicago. Again, Green Bay with a win still needs some help. If the Commanders beat the Cowboys on Sunday at the Star, Washington a 6.5-point road favorite, Green Bay pretty locked into that 7 spot in pole position to claim the 6 seed. If the Commanders lose and the Packers handle the Bears as the odds expect, then Green Bay could jump up to the 6th spot, which is important because you would go on the road to the 3 seed, which is either the Bucs or the Rams, and not the 7 seed on the road to the 2 seed, which we know is Philadelphia. But, Joe, it's still a double-digit spread. How do you approach the rivalry renewed at Lambeau Field?
Oh, I don't know about rivalry renewed here. It really doesn't make a difference who the quarterback is for Green Bay. They apparently still own the Chicago Bears. Now, 11 straight games that they have lost to the Packers. They're 1-10, by the way, in those games against the number. And the one lone cover, give them credit, Ben, came earlier this year as Green Bay ended up winning on a blocked field goal, if you remember that disaster. Yeah. And Matt LaFleur stated that the teams, all the team's healthy starters will play in this game as they can secure, like you said, the number 6 seed. And if the Commanders somehow lose, which is always a possibility here, well, that's a much easier first-round trip to play the Rams or the Bucs instead of having to go to the Eagles. So I anticipate Green Bay going full board here. And there is nothing redeeming about the Chicago team. They're not well coached. They are all waiting for what's going to happen in the offseason here. To me, this is all about Green Bay handling their business in a big way and getting the bad taste out of their mouth against with that game against Minnesota that they got actually beat pretty easily in. So expect a bounce back here.
Again, there will be some live scoreboard watching on Sunday. The Packers should come out with their heads on fire, as you would expect, some burnt cheese at Lambeau to hammer the Chicago Bears early and often on Sunday. But if the Packers see the Commanders up by 14 points late in the second half, might we see some reserves against the Bears? Maybe so. Keep an eye on the live odds board for Sunday. And, of course, Joe Ranieri and Mike Blewett will have you set on NFL football in-game live game day on Sunday afternoon. Joe, only 2 of 16 total games to end out the regular season in the NFL where neither team facing off against the other has anything at stake for a playoff berth, a playoff seed line or anything really to do with the NFL draft. Obviously, their draft position can change, but at least in the running for a number 1 overall pick. That includes an NFC West game to end out the year out in the desert between the Cardinals and the 49ers. A disastrous season for San Francisco. The guy on your left, Brock Purdy, still dealing with some elbow issues, not going to play in the regular season finale. That is meaningless. Joshua Dobbs, is going to make the start for the 49ers. The Cardinals, not much left either. A 4.5-point favorite, though, at home against San Francisco. Joe, with neither team having much motivation, how do you even begin to handicap this football game?
Well, I mean, listen, it's been a terrible second half to the season for the Cardinals, but in all honesty, it's always a terrible December for Kyler Murray. He is one of the worst quarterbacks when the calendar turns to December and January in the NFL. His record is awful. In fact, they're 1-5 here in their last 6 games this season. He is 9-19 in the month of December and January in his career. So this is not the time that you want to back Arizona and Kyler Murray. However, this gives them this opportunity with their new head coach. That gives them an opportunity to end the season on a winning note. The 49ers are a team, been there, done that. They just can't wait to get off the field and head to rehab and get everyone ready for next year. I would lean the Cardinals in this one. They obviously, I think, would much rather end the season on a winning note. I don't think the 49ers care one way or the other.
Yeah, listen, I thought this game might be Brock Purdy. I was interested in San Francisco because what really does Arizona have at stake either?
Right.
Now, I would agree with Joe. I think it's a Cardinals number if you really want to get involved.
Yep.
Another one in the AFC South where, again, no stakes. A disastrous season for Indianapolis and many questions to be answered about work ethic in this organization and the future at the quarterback spot with Anthony Richardson about to embark on year number 3. An uneasy offseason, I would say, Joe, in Indy. And really the same for Jacksonville. But we haven't heard a lot about a Jags team that we thought maybe back in week 6 they would fire Doug Peterson. Maybe week 11, week 16. Now, here in week 18, he's still the head coach. We'll see what happens on Black Monday, a day where head coaches often lose their roles. But, Joe, there's a thought that maybe Jacksonville runs it back with Doug Peterson and a healthy Trevor Lawrence entering 2025. 4.5-point spread in favor of the Colts. Any value in this game?
I'm thinking here that this feels like, and I know it's a tough look here, but isn't this an under spot here? I mean, Indy last week, there were guys making business decisions on the defensive side of the ball all over the place there last week here. And I know back in Mac Jones ain't a great thing here, but my goodness, it feels like Jacksonville has been giving effort even though the season has been over. I don't know that I'm going to get that with Indy here. Too many guys with the Ole last week on the defensive side for me to trust the Colts. To me, this is all about Jacksonville here.
Joe, this game feels like bowl season in a way. Week 18 in spots feels like bowl season. If you have an understanding of motivation, you handicap early. I jumped on the Jags getting 5.5 earlier this week. More on the early line up next.